Welcome to Asian Review. I'm your host, Bill Sharp. Our guest today actually doesn't need any introduction because she used to host this show. But just in case, this is Dr. Hong Jiang. She's Associate Professor of Geography at the University of Hawaii and also a China scholar. Today, she wants to talk to us about a show that she's very much involved with, and it's called the Shen Yun Show, which you might have seen advertisements for in the paper or on TV. It's a really wonderful show. I've seen it in previous years. It's very, very colorful. The costumes are spectacular, and it focuses on traditional Chinese culture. It employs many classical dances from way back when in Chinese history. And I'm sure that you would enjoy going. So without further ado, let's get talking to our guest who's going to tell us all about this show. Welcome to Asian Review.
Well, thank you, Bill, and great to be back.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to have you here. Well, let me see. Where do we start? A lot goes into the preparation of a show like this, doesn't it?
I can't even imagine. Let me explain something about my connection with the show because
Sure.
I definitely don't represent the show.
Okay.
And I represent the, I guess, a fan group in Honolulu that has been helping to promote the Shen Yun Show. This is my 8th year. Imagine Shen Yun Show has been coming here to Honolulu. This is number 8th consecutive year.
Okay.
Every year's new show.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just want to put that out. Whatever I say, don't quote me on it regarding the Shen Yun. It's just a fan's opinion.
Okay.
But in terms of preparation, I don't really know personally, but I just can't imagine anything less than just a full effort in preparation. And you see the show, how well-disciplined, how beautiful the dances are. And one thing about the show that struck me, you know, you have best dancers, right? Mm-hmm. They really have such a grace in their body with all these movements. The Shen Yun dancer is unique, that when they flip the jump, you actually don't feel the weight. I mean, they land on the dance floor and you don't feel there's a weight coming down. And somebody described that to me. I said, oh my God, I never paid attention to it, but that's true. And that's just how skillful you can be.
Wow.
To land without having the audience feel there's a weight prompt down there. And of course, the Shen Yun dancers are the best dancers from all over the world.
How do they select the dancers?
From my understanding, they have dancers from all over the world. First of all, Shen Yun is based in New York, not from China. It's an international company.
Okay.
So they get the dancers. They have their own prep school.
Okay.
So the dancers would be admitted from all over the world, selected to the school, and then from the school, they select the best.
Oh, I see. So they apply for the school, and then they undergo additional dance training.
That's right, over years, I don't know how many years of training.
And then the show selects the best.
That's right.
For the show.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's why you're guaranteed to see the best classical Chinese dancers in the world.
They're from all over the world, but they're Chinese.
They're
right?
Chinese,
Chinese that are living in, Europe, other parts of Asia.
America,
Canada, wherever.
But the source of the creativity, I believe, came from China.
Okay.
All the directors and the choreographers from China, from Hong Kong or Taiwan, these kind of countries.
The dancers, is this their primary job, dancing, or is this just a kind of a hobby that they have?
They're professional. They're professional dancers, but the whole group, the Shen Yun Performing Arts Company, is a non-for-profit organization.
Okay.
So the dancers dance full-time. I mean, here's what they do. They would perform half a year, starting from December till early May. And usually when they come to Honolulu, it's Shen Yun's last stop.
I see.
And then they go back to base and probably have a few days of rest. And then they start to prep for next year's all-new show. That includes new choreography, new costumes, and new music, new dance, new backdrop. Everything is new. So you imagine if they're not working full-time, how can they ever produce that?
Oh, yeah. They have to be 100% committed.
Yeah.
The stage design is also very interesting. Yeah.
The stage design is amazing. You go there, you said, wow, what's happening there? And I just want to mention for our audience here,
Sure.
the show here is coming in May 8 and 9, only 2 days and 3 shows.
Maybe we can
And
get
people,
a close-up of that.
we can probably show the video.
Okay, you have it, that's right, you supplied us with a video. Could we roll that video then?
Inspired
So-
by
here we go.
ancient culture, classical Chinese dance, vigorous physicality, timeless stories, 5,000 years of Chinese music and dance. Shen Yun presents authentic Chinese culture. Coming to Blaisdell Concert Hall, May 8th and 9th. Tickets at shenyun.com or call 808-792-3919.
So I think the video, if the audience members paid attention to it, you can see the colorful backdrop.
Right,
And that backdrop is done digitally.
Oh, is that right?
But it's not any like a cheap production at all. It's like a, I don't know, $1 million, multi-million-dollar production. They had the
Wow.
best production artists.
Wow.
So what they do is that, Shen Yun is trying to bring back 5,000 years of Chinese culture through stories and motifs, traditional motifs, and they take you to different dynasties and different regions. And you set the scene, right? And some of the stories are magical stories, like a story of Journey to the West, the
Okay.
Monkey King story,
Sure,
and he
sure.
would fly to the mountains.
Classical story.
Yeah, fly to the mountains and fly to the heavens. He's going up and down and up and down, and the Shen Yun production forms all that, produce all that scene by having this digital, interactive, 3-dimensional backdrop.
Wow.
So you see the dancers would fly into the backdrop and fly out of the backdrop. And
Right.
on the backdrop, things are happening.
Right,
And
right.
when the first time when I saw the Shen Yun show, I kind of forgot to pay attention to the backdrop. But then I said, oh my God, something's happening there. I need to pay attention. Because then that being would come out of the backdrop and come to the stage. So that's the technology that wowed the Broadway producers. And you have a Broadway producer, I'm quoting one, Richard Kanema, who's
Okay.
a Broadway critic who has reviewed over 3,000 Broadway shows since 1942. And he said, none can compare to what I saw tonight. And he used the word mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's
So
good.
the other person is the artistic director of Avatar, Robert Stromberg, who saw the movie and
Avatar, wow. That
and
was
he
a
said,
popular movie.
this is so inspiring that he may have found new ideas for the next Avatar movie.
Wow.
So the Avatar is really about special effects.
Sure,
And
3D.
so that's one component of the Shen Yun show that is so attractive. And in LA, they sold out just last month to 50,000 live audience members. Nobody could get more tickets anymore. No single seat left.
Wow.
And people are calling Honolulu from LA to want to fly out to Honolulu from LA to see the show. Yeah.
That's incredible. So this is really quite a logistical undertaking too, isn't it? I mean, it's not only designing stage sets, costumes, coming up with new choreography, new music every year. It's moving all the, well, obviously the cast members, but all the stage props.
Let me mention this exactly. They have a live orchestra.
And they have a live orchestra as
we're,
well.
we're talking about close to 100 people coming, about half dancers
Okay.
and half in the orchestra. So the orchestra is unique, one of a kind. It blends Chinese and Western musical instruments.
That was my question. I'm going to ask you. So they have some Western instruments, some Chinese instruments.
That's right. Yeah.
What Chinese instruments?
Well,
do
you have the erhu,
Okay.
and you have the
Erhu is-
Chinese gong, the percussion move.
Okay.
They also have the Chinese harp.
Okay.
So these different kinds of the Chinese suona, it's a different kind of
Like
a
a
pipe.
horn, yeah.
It's a pipe. So they work really well according to musicians. It's like perfect. And when I sit down and watch the Shen Yun show, I forget it's a live orchestra because everything was so seamless.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, because you talk about moving all the stuff that
Right,
they had to
right,
move. I can't imagine the kind of stuff they had to move because you have the props, you have costumes, all handmade costumes.
Right.
Over 400 sets
Right.
each show.
Right.
And you're talking about how many dancers, right?
Right.
So all of those need to be moved, and also all of their musical movements are part of their cargo.
Mm.
So it's definitely a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's immense.
Yeah.
I mean, to put a show together like this and to move all this equipment, the sets, the props, the cast, the orchestra, this involves a lot of money.
It takes devotion, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the money part, as far as my understanding goes, that you have a lot of volunteers in the local area. Like for me, I'm entirely, it's my volunteer work to help support the show locally. And I believe the show goes to many, over 100 cities in the world, and every city they go to, they rely on local volunteers and fans to help them.
So
Otherwise, the performing arts doesn't work financially.
How many volunteers like you are there in Honolulu?
In Honolulu, we have about a dozen in and out. You know, some people can do more, some people do less. And in Honolulu, you know, people may go to the malls. We have booth at malls.
Selling tickets?
They would promote and help sell tickets.
Okay.
And, you know, those are the volunteers. If you see anybody handing out flyers, those are volunteers. Every one of them are volunteers. Yeah.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
interesting. Well, okay, we talked about some of what's involved in the show. Let's talk about some of its symbolic meaning. Now, I think you said earlier, or I read someplace, that the show seeks to revive 5,000 years of Chinese history. Explain that.
I think we need to kind of go back a little bit to the background of Chinese history, modern history. The traditions are being eroded all over the world, China in particular, because you have to go back to 1949 when Communist Party took over control in China, and very quickly start to launch all these political movements and get rid of all the traditions, because the Chinese traditions were seen as obstacle to the advancement of communism, right?
Right.
So you have, you know, all the traditional arts and the stories and art forms and dances, all of them were removed. So during the 10 years of Cultural Revolution in 1970, 66 and 76, all you have is this modern revolutionary opera. Nothing else.
Zhangqing.
That's right, yeah. So then, after the Cultural Revolution, you get to the 80s and 90s, and now after 2000, China got a lot more into this commerce kind of mode of thinking. You know, things are being brought back, and Chinese people wanted to go back to the tradition, but you know, you still have a tight control of the Communist Party in China,
right.
and the party is censoring all arts. You've seen probably the Spring Festival show in China. It's a big stage of a glorification of the party.
Right.
And any arts in China is all kind of with the party's hands on it. It's very hard to have a pure show just to go back to the tradition.
The party's fingerprints are all over it. Let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll continue this. You're watching Asia in Review. I'm your host, Bill Sharp. Our guest today is not really a guest. Dr. Hong Zhang, she's talking to us today, explaining to us about performance in which she's very much involved, called the Shen Yun performance, which is going to be playing right here in Honolulu, May 8th and May 9th, I believe. We'll be right back.
Here's the deal.
Sounds good.
I'm Jay Fidel on the host
So we can use it
long do we
along.
have?
Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy.
2
which is
minutes?
The Energy Policy Forum's program.
Oh,
on
we get a
Wednesday.
long break,
That's
2
what we
minutes.
call Wednesday Energy.
So we can
Fest.
easily
We call
launch
it
into
Energy
like
Wednesday.
the meaning of the
Energy
show.
Yeah, I think
why
that's what
why
we
do
need
I
to get
want to
into.
name it
Yeah.
Hope of the Nation?
Yeah.
Hawaiian
Yeah.
Electric, who can
That'll
tell us what's
get
really
us
going on in energy.
enough
We
to
wanna be
get to the
informed.
next break.
It's so important.
Right.
It's the most important initiative in our state. Clean energy is major, okay?
This is good,
And
thank
that's
you.
why we cover it on this show.
very smooth.
That's the deal.
Thank you.
What do you think, Sharon?
I think that's great. That's why
No,
we're
I'm
here every Wednesday from 4 to 5.
I have a little bit of a
and we hope
cough.
you
If
all
I
join us so we
pump
can hear
myself
people
up with
like
water,
Jim
I think it'll
coming on
prevent
our
it.
show, and
Ah.
co-host Ray Starley from Hawaii Energy.
Okay, Jim, You've been here today, you've seen this, you heard what she said, what do you think?
Yeah, let's, when we come
think
back,
it's a
let's
tremendous
pick up,
opportunity for
you know,
people
talking
to
about the
come together and
meaning
talk
of
about
it
the issues.
and,
Talking about
Oftentimes,
the
there is a
revival
big
of the
revival,
culture, yeah,
right,
Out into the
and that
public.
sort of thing, because I
This
think
is a
that's
tremendous
really
way to
important to
go
talk about.
yeah, yeah.
The cultural
activity of
meaning,
this
the
show
value,
is essential
and
to keep talking about energy because, as
the
you said,
attempt to
it's
revive
such an
Chinese
essential
culture.
part of our
Yep.
lives that we need to pay
1
attention
minute.
to it.
This is
and
a
we need
nice
to
long
think about
break.
the future.
Sometimes we only get only a
Okay,
minute.
Ray, your turn.
Well, this is
Hey, you guys
special
are switching
time in the
places
history
today, huh?
of Hawaii,
For
where
the
we're
last
making
hour of
some
every day.
pretty radical changes.
Oh,
to,
I see,
see.
I
use
Got it.
energy and generate energy. And
So you're
this
training
show
Sachi
is the
on
one place
everything.
you can
Yeah,
count
this is
on
her
coming
first
to
time going
every
solo.
Wednesday.
Oh,
and
wow.
hearing something
You
about the
ladies are
latest
great.
issues that are on the table, being discussed. that
Yeah.
will
30
affect us all going
seconds.
forward. So come join us, and if you have some ideas you want to share with us about energy, give us a call and let us know. We'll put you up here and let you talk
20,
for an hour.
I think she said.
So come
20?
see us.
Here we go.
Thanks, Ray.
We're
Thanks,
getting
Sharon.
it.
Thanks, Jim. It's great to be,
Sachi, when you
from
get a
ThinkTech's
chance,
point of view,
please
it's great to
live
have this
stream.
show. We love the show. It's our most important show. So come around and listen to us 4 to 5 on Wednesday. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Welcome back to Asia in Review. I'm your host, Bill Sharp. Our guest today, Dr. Hong Zhang, Associate Professor of Geography, China Scholar at the University of Hawaii, Manoa. She's also very involved with the show that's coming up that we'll be visiting, playing in Honolulu called Shen Yun. It's really a show that seeks to revive Chinese culture. And in fact, we're talking about just that point, just before the break. So we're going to go back there and pick that up. And okay, true. After 1949, the Chinese Communist Party sought to rip out traditional Chinese culture. As you suggested, they thought it was an impediment to the pursuit, the establishment, the advancement of communism. The Cultural Revolution, they carried it a step further, a number of steps further. And it is true that after the Cultural Revolution, so much of ancient Chinese culture was destroyed. Buddhist temples were burnt down or somehow heavily damaged. A lot of classical literature was swept away, all replaced with this Zhangqing's form of culture, peasant culture, somebody would call it, revolutionary culture, others would call
That's
it.
right.
Culture for the masses. And it seems that even though in some ways some people might have bought into some of what the Communist Party was saying, they really didn't like to see all those old operas pushed under the table.
That's right. Yeah,
I'm really favorable to classical Chinese dance. I just really think that's great.
I mean, it's really, that's where the culture is.
Mm-hmm.
And you see now Chinese, the government is trying to really move up on the economic ladder, but there's so many problems. And how can you find a major nation stand on economic leg only and destroying the environment and culture? And so culture really is the foundation of a nation. That's why I want to name this show Shen Yun, Hope of a Nation. Because the real hope is really about the cultural revival, a revival of really the Chinese soul. That's what I see the Shen Yun is doing.
Okay, there's a good comment there, a comment we really got to get into. The revival of the Chinese soul. Explain.
Okay. So
I think this is a really pithy issue.
And that's why I'm so passionate about the show. That's why I'm supporting the show with my kind of personal effort. And so as a China scholar, I really see all the destruction that's happening in China. And also my work is on cultural geography of China. Looking at culture of China, it's actually a very profound and very spiritual culture. You talk about Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. You talk about something that is much larger. It's just the opposite of what Communist Party believes, which is a kind of atheist belief, all in the masses and all in the human power. And that's why we have so many problems.
Okay, I'm devil's advocate here for a
Yeah.
minute. Okay, the party would say, and they said, oh, yeah, well, ancient Chinese culture is good, but it's unscientific. It's too much built on mysticism, and as such, it's holding people back. Confucianism, Mao said, Confucianism tends to make the Chinese weak. That means that they can be conquered by foreign people.
You know, that's a comment from a totally different value. It's a value of materialism, which is what Communist Party wanted to see. It's a value that they neglected the soul.
Okay.
And, you know, you think about belief, think about beauty, it's not a scientific measurement. And that's where I think the Communist Party is leading the Chinese nation totally on the wrong track. And you can see the result right now with all these problems that's happening in China. And the other thing is that I think the Chinese people deep down.
For the benefit of our audience, you better spell out what you're calling problems.
You see the problems in terms of loss of culture and loss of roots and this materialistic pursuit that is leading to a lot of problems in terms of economic problem, discrepancy between the rich and the poor, and all these environmental problems. The air is not breathable, and human rights are violated, all for the purpose of gaining economic clout, and who's benefiting from it. And at the same time, you talk about a nation that's with the young people forgetting its own history and culture and who they are, who the Chinese are. You know, I'm teaching a course on China at the UH Manoa, and people, after I talk about the Chinese tradition, students made the comment, so this is not happening in China. This doesn't exist in China. I said, you know, China today is the least Chinese because a lot of the traditions are destroyed by the Chinese Communist Party. And then there is a need to bring the stories back, bring the values back, and bring the cultures back. And that's going to benefit the Chinese people and also the globe, because you have a more peaceful culture, you have a more hopeful culture, you have a culture that focuses more on benevolence. And that's what the Shen Yun show does. They bring back the stories. They bring back the Buddhist stories, the Taoist stories, the Confucian stories, and the traditional stories.
Tell us a Buddhist story that you like.
A Buddhist story. Let's see. Oh, there was one story that the Shen Yun show performed a few years ago. This is actually all based on true story.
Okay.
It's a monk in the temple suddenly received this a single woman who had a child without being wedded, and in Chinese culture, traditional society, this woman is going to have a very difficult life. And this woman wanted to have the monk raise her child for her. The monk said, okay, I'll take the child. And then, but she wanted to protect the woman's identity. So she didn't say who the child is, where the child is from. And the rumor goes that, oh, this is a monk who had a baby with some lady out there. And this monk was despised and looked down upon. He didn't say anything. Over the years, he raised up the boy.
I see where you're going.
And then quite a few years later, the woman came back to claim the child. It's a very kind of heartwarming story.
This is the kind of story, a great sacrifice, such as the monk made. This kind of story, this kind of theme is sort of popular in Chinese literature.
And it's really about the traditional Chinese value of compassion and think about others and do for others, good things for others. So this kind of value is important. I mean, the one other story would be the modern story, because the show is sponsored by.
No, when you say modern story, what time era are you talking about?
I'm talking about right now.
Okay, so very contemporary.
Very contemporary, because the Shen Yun show is sponsored by Falun Dafa Association of Hawaii here.
Okay.
So Falun Dafa is called Falun Gong. Also, it's suppressed in China, as you know.
Right.
And it's a Buddha-based practice. It's
Okay.
about compassion. And so the Shen Yun show have played a modern episode of the story of Falun Gong practitioners being persecuted but stay faithful to their belief. It's about courage. That's another Buddhist kind of story.
Okay. you just said something, I think we better answer this for the audience. Some of our folks in the audience will probably know the answer, but others might not. Okay, Falun Gong, Falun Dafa is suppressed in China. Why?
It goes back to the root of the Communist Party. Falun Gong or Falun Dafa is an ancient Chinese practice.
Okay.
And it became very popular in the 1990s. By 1999, there were 70 to 100 million people practicing. This is according to the government number. And this number surpassed the member of Communist Party. And you probably can figure out the rest of the story. The party started to feel insecure about a group that's outside of their control and started to launch the persecution.
I heard a very interesting story, actually, that Jiang Zemin, right, when he was chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, and of course it's important to remember how he got there. He got there after the Tiananmen incident, right?
That's after the 1985 massacre of students,
89.
and he rose up, 89, sorry.
Yeah, and apparently Deng Xiaoping thought that he handled the crowds, the demonstrations in Shanghai well, so he got elevated to Beijing. And so realizing the way that he got there, he was particularly worried about any kind of mass
Very
movements that went
insecure
against the
himself.
party. Very insecure.
I know, he's...
And I either read or heard this story one time is there was a huge Falun Gong demonstration outside of Zhongnanhai where all the top leaders of the Chinese Communist Party lived. And so he told his driver, okay, we're going to get into my car, my limo, and we're going to make sure we keep the curtains down. And I want you to go out there and drive around so I can see what's going on.
Well, here's a
and
party
then when
leader.
he saw the size of the crowd, he was, we would say, freaked out.
Well, you know, it's a huge group there, Falun Gong. So anyway, so that's that is the background of Falun Gong. And what's interesting is that Falun Gong is suppressed in China, and Shen Yun, as we mentioned, it's based in New York City. It's censored in China, as many arts performances are censored in China.
Sure.
And the Shen Yun in particular call the word the show Shen Yun. Shen means divine.
Okay.
So Shen Yun means divine essence.
Right.
So the show wants to bring back the divine essence of the Chinese culture and rubs the Communist Party the wrong way, because party doesn't recognize anything divine. It's their power. It's the ultimate power.
I think the party is always very, very upset about any kind of potential mass movement. And to me, that seems to be their concern about.
Yeah, but
Falun Gong.
but even arts, anything that's different, anything that I feel like I want to say anything that touches people's soul. Art is not like a. I mean, there are different kind of art performances that's censored in China. Doesn't have to be big, but they are very keen on censoring arts.
I heard one thing about. I just told that story about Jiang Zemin, and I think. Well, actually, I've heard other things from Zhu Rongji. Things that Zhu Rongji said, former premier of China, that he thought that Jiang Zemin overreacted.
Oh, because he was alone. Jiang Zemin was alone, from what I read, in terms of wanting to suppress Falun Gong in China.
Yeah. And Zhu Rongji was interested in economic development, and as long as he got that, he was happy. It's very, very interesting.
So there are just so many things we can talk about China, and everything is like related to culture and the Shen Yun show. Again, we should probably just remind the audience members, May 8 and 9, only 2 days and 3 shows at the Blaisdell Concert Hall.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Are there Kama Einer rates or senior citizen rates or that kind of thing?
No, there isn't any. So there's just one rate. But here's the thing. The price for the show is $60 to $150. And if you think about it, somebody gave me this analogy. I said, oh, that makes so much sense. If you have like let's say 100 people coming here, you pay $60. You pay 60 cents per person, per performer for the show.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Fair enough.
it's a
Fair
fair
enough.
value.
Fair
Plus, this is like several shows in one. Okay. It's worthwhile to just see the dance. And when I get there, I kind of forget it's a live orchestra until the orchestra comes up. I said, oh my God, there's a live orchestra. I had to remember that. There's an orchestra that's live. There's a show itself. It's so worth going. The backdrop and the stories and everything. And there's costumes. And the designers love the costumes.
Where do the performers and the orchestra members stay when they're here?
I don't know, hotels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
And
that's another expense. Too.
Without that's why it's so much expense. And the show, my understanding is that the show ticket price doesn't cover nearly the price cost of the production. So we're in for good deal over here, really.
Okay, well, we're going to take another break here. You're watching Asian Review. I'm your host, Bill Sharp. We're talking to Dr. Hong Zhang, Associate Professor of Geography at China Scholar, University of Hawaii. She's also a volunteer member of the Honolulu Support Group, I think we'll call it, of Shen Yun, a show that is about to play here in May 8th and May 9th. And it's a show that seeks to revive traditional Chinese culture. And we'll be right back.
This is Alice Lee Hagen, host of ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show here at ThinkTech Hawaii is every Thursday from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. I bring in interesting guests from Hawaii, the mainland, and hopefully international guests in the future. Do join us on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. Aloha.
Hi, my name is Seymour Kazimirski. I have a show called Seymour's World on ThinkTech Hawaii. Our show is about opening minds and facilitating conversations. To tell you the truth, I have no idea what we're going to be talking about. I have no idea who our guests are going to be, but I guarantee you we're going to have lots and lots of fun. Aloha from Seymour's World.
Welcome back to Asian Review. I'm your host, Bill Sharp. Our guest today is Dr. Hong Zhang. We were talking about the cost of the show just before the break, and I meant to ask you, the show is being performed here in Honolulu at the Blaisdell Center, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Is
the
it going to
concert
be
hall.
a concert hall? Is it going to be performed on Maui as well?
No, Maui could probably, the theater could probably work, but no, it's only in Honolulu. Yeah, and they require a huge stage. So in Honolulu, you have the concert hall that's big enough for them. Yeah.
So all you folks that live on a neighbor island, if you're planning a trip to Oahu, you can work the show into it as well. Do your shopping, go out to dinner, and then go to the show.
And this year, there's actually, we have the great opportunity of a matinee. It's May 9th, there's a matinee 2 p.m. show and evening show 7:30. So the 2 p.m. show is good for travelers.
Is May 9th a Saturday?
Saturday, yeah.
Saturday, and
So
that
Friday
makes May
and
8th,
Saturday.
obviously, a Friday. But there's just one matinee, and that's on Saturday.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
right,
going to be 3 shows.
3 shows only, yeah.
2 evening shows and 1 matinee.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, good. Let's see, where were we? Okay. I had something here I wanted to ask. And let's talk a little more about the cultural meaning, but let me ask this question too. When Falun Gong started off in Northeast China. You're from Northeast China, right?
Yeah, Harbin.
Harbin.
Cold place.
You can't get any more Northeast in China than Harbin. And it started off throughout the Northeast, I guess, in all 3 northeastern provinces. And because of the economic situation there, as I understand it, and that this part of China, after 1949, was considered a developed section of China. But as time went on, it sort of fell behind economically. Unemployment increased.
I'm not sure, place has anything to do with it. I think it's really about a cultural vacuum in 1980s and 90s, partly related to what we were talking about before, which is the destruction of Chinese culture. So therefore, you have a cultural vacuum that led people to really seek traditional practices. And this is where, the Shen Yun show is based in terms of, you have the long destruction. You have 60, 70 years of destruction. You have a few generations already. You ask the new young Chinese people about Chinese culture, they don't know the very basics anymore. They don't know the classics. So therefore, the Shen Yun show for me is not just it's really about bring back those culture, those memories, and to not just to share with the world, but to share with Chinese also. I mean, I'm Chinese. When I saw the Shen Yun show first time in 2007, I said, "Wow, this is the best show I have ever seen. The best portrait of the Chinese culture. I have never seen anything that can get to the soul of the Chinese culture." That's what I mean by the soul of a nation. Because the soul is not just these superficial things about material gain, and not even things like, you light a firecracker during the New Year's and you do certain particular wedding ceremonies. Those are forms. But what are behind it? So what are supporting the culture is really the values and the stories that show those values of benevolence, of kindness, and of hope, of courage, and of virtue, of filial piety. So those are the stories are being Confucianism and Taoism and Buddhism, and there are also stories like we talk about one of the Buddhist stories that was shown, and there are also Confucian stories. And many of the Confucian stories filial piety. Heard of this the story of Mulan, who is this lady and went into war in the place of her elderly father, pretend she's a man, and won battle, won the war in the battlefields. And then she came back and awarded by the emperor. So that's a real story of Chinese culture, and that's a story of filial piety and loyalty to the country. There's also this story of Yuan Fei, who is a major general in the Song dynasty, supported the country, defended the country to his death. So these stories are being played out. The traditions that the Chinese people now are not breathing anymore, forgetting that's the root of the Chinese culture.
Well, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. Of course, the party would say, well, hey, we realize there's some benefit in Confucianism, and we want a harmonious society.
That's what they say, harmonious.
It's written all over the streets of China, 和谐修为.
That's right, yeah.
And say things like, other Buddhist concepts, like we want a small but comfortable society, 小康社会.
Yeah.
And we really want people to, to get along with each other. And all this is Confucianism. But you think that's just a facade?
That's a facade, because you see how in China, in the society today, you probably see the video of a little girl, 5-year-old, being hit by the car, and nobody cared for this girl lying on the side of the road for 18 minutes, and the same truck came back and rolled over her again. And those were all on camera, and it's just people don't care about human life anymore. So that's kind of morality. I mean, how come you have all this poison in food? So that's the morality declining, and that's where the Chinese culture is so important to bring it back. And plus, for the Shen Yun show, who cares about what the Chinese party are thinking about? Because it's really for the nation and for the people. It's not for the party. So the Shen Yun show performs in over 100 cities in the world, regardless of what Communist Party thinks. And Chinese people are going out of China to watch the show. I've had people coming out from Beijing to fly to Honolulu just to see the show.
Is that right?
Yeah, because the show is very, very popular. And talking about the popularity of the show, I have to make a few quotes on the show that's made by people in the art world. This is one quote by Ken Wells, who's a former lead dancer of the English National Ballet, and he said about the Shen Yun show, absolutely the #1 show in the world, absolutely the best. No other company or of any style can match this. So this is our expert, and you have the Broadway critics who talk about this show, and you have the Chi Cao, who was the principal dancer of the Birmingham Royal Ballet, who also played in Mao's Last Dancer.
Okay.
In that movie, and he's saying this is demonstrating the highest realm in arts Shen Yun inspires in the performing world. So all these comments you have, this is another comment by Olivia Brown Klon, who's a musician, who said, it was a very spiritual experience and it moved me and I cried. I kept thinking, this is the highest and the best of what humans can produce.
It's interesting.
It speaks to the soul. That's what
Right.
Shen Yun is about.
It's interesting that you say that you know that there are people who have flown to Honolulu from Beijing just to see the show. And that's interesting because I've seen a lot of mainland tourists in Taiwan. And when they're in Taiwan, they're sort of overwhelmed by the availability of information,
Exactly.
You can turn on the TV and listen to all these fairly boisterous TV talk shows where they talk about politics and very critical of the president, and simply not the thing you can do in China.
And Shen Yun performs sold-out shows in Taiwan every year.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
imagine. There's some bookstores in Taiwan that do very, very well because they sell all the books that are banned in the mainland.
Oh, that's a good one.
Mainland tourists go in there and they spend their time in Taiwan not sightseeing, reading books that are banned in the mainland, or sitting in the hotel room watching TV shows that have
That's right. That's
political content.
That's why Chinese people are yearning for freedom, yearning for information. That's why they would come out to see the show. And people in Taiwan have the luxury of really enjoying this really beautiful presentation of the Chinese culture that is a Shen Yun show that's every year that's going there.
Well, we're getting down here close to the end here, but let me ask you this question here. Okay, Buddhism. Okay. A lot of the themes portrayed in the music and the dance routines in Shen Yun have a Buddhist connection as well as a Confucian
And also Taoist
Taoism
stories.
connection.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. The Buddhist connection, is that based on Hinayana or Dacheng or Xiaocheng Buddhism?
In China, it's I guess they call it. I believe it's called Dacheng,
Okay.
but it's.
Hinayana, I think it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I know
believe.
the
I
Chinese
forget.
is
I forget
easier.
those terms. Yeah, but it's really it's not in getting into the kind of Buddhist doctrines.
Okay.
It's really about values. It's
Okay.
about value of compassion. That is the most important. And same thing goes with the Confucianism and Taoism. It's really to see what is the base of a culture. It's these stories, it's these values, it's the rubric of these particular stories that forms the foundation of a nation. And those were the stories that were highlighted in the Shen Yun show. So you think about all these isms. They are played out, they manifest in stories. And Chinese are good with stories, and you have 5,000 years of accumulated stories, and that's why Shen Yun can perform every year without repeating anything. Every year's new story. Every year now they have the story of the Journey to the West, the Monkey King story, and there are 81 episodes of tribulations they went through when the Monkey King went to the West with the monk Tang Seng to retrieve the Buddhist scripture, right? So they can play 81 years without repeating anything. They pick one story per year to show, to demonstrate. They're just maybe 5-7 minutes to complete the whole story. It's magical. Yeah, just amazing to see.
So what you're saying is really that even if people have seen this show in the past, this year's show will be totally different.
It's totally different, although it's a similar format.
Okay.
Yeah, every year I'm looking forward to the new show because I say, oh wow, they're going to have something new. Every year I see their video clip there. I said, wow, this year is even better than last year. And this year I look at this, how can you become better than that? But next year you have to look and wait and see. They are going to produce even better video clips than the last year, and even better shows, brighter and more beautiful. I can't describe. I don't know how they do it better, but they do.
Great. Well, you've given us a really good, heads up on the show, and I'm sure that you sparked a lot of interest in our audience. And remember, again, it's May 8th and it's May 9th. It's at the Neil Blaisdell Concert Center right here in Honolulu. As we were saying to our neighbor island friends, this would be a great opportunity for you to make a trip to Honolulu, do some shopping, go out to dinner, and then go to the show. And again, if you've seen the show in the past, this is a completely different show. It's changed every year. So we would like to thank our, as we say, not really a guest, but our friend.
Our family
Hong Zhang,
member.
Our family member, Hong Zhang, for coming back to visit with us today. And thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.